Hello, everyone. This is being shown to you with a delay. So, yes, I am here. Yes, I am live. But just like when they do broadcasts of events online or on TV, and they want to make sure that they can fix any problems if any problems occur, they put a delay on it. So, what you see will be delayed, but I'm still here live. I'm still responding to you in chat. So I would appreciate if everyone would cooperate and just went with it. So we have your exams coming up. I have given you a lot of advice on what I will be talking about, on what I expect of you for the exams. Some of you have already started preparing, some of you haven't, but I'm just going to go briefly over the things that you're going to need just in case. I'll be doing this often until the day that you actually have the exams. And then you can't say to me, oh, I didn't know that this was going to be, you know what I mean? So, the first thing, we are going to have the topic of artificial intelligence, technology in modern times, positives and negatives of it from the perspective of those of you who are familiar with Black Mirror. Perhaps this is a common theme for everyone that is familiar with the series. But even if you're not, I showed you one episode, which is called John is Awful. And this episode will be discussed in the exam. You have the choice to watch it again, or perhaps look at your notes that you took when we watched it. Technology, especially artificial intelligence, being used in film, in entertainment, TV, all of that is going to be one of the themes in the exam. I interviewed actor, stand up comedian Kalia McNeil, who talked about artificial intelligence. At the time when I interviewed her, she was on strike with other actors. And one of the problems that they were having and that they wanted addressed with that strike was the use of artificial intelligence. So all of the themes will connect in the exams. Other topics that we'll be covering: the circles of English. The circles of English. Many people, and when I say many, I mean many, talk about English as being a second language here in Norway, and that is wrong. English is a foreign language here in Norway. We talked about the circles of English. When people have English as their first language, they are part of the inner circle of English. And that is the case with some countries. I'd like you to tap in the chat box, not tap, but type in the chat box countries where English is the first language, countries in the inner circle. Australia, USA, Canada, England, Scotland. These countries are in the inner circle of English. This will be a part of your exam. You will have between 4 and 5 hours to complete your exam. Those of you who have submitted documentation to the school that you have special circumstances, such as, I don't want to give you a for instance in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that if you have dyslexia, ADHD, and other types of specific circumstances that you will need extra time for it, you'll have extra time for it. So, but it's between 4 and 5 hours. So instead of just doing something really quickly and just handing it in, use your time wisely because you'll have quite a bit to write about. But let's continue with this. The outer circle of English. Does anybody remember that? Please type in the chat box what that is, the outer circle. Not the countries in the outer circle, but what the outer circle is. Please type in the chat box. This does not work unless people type in the chat box and participate. I've had over 100 students go through the process of doing the YouTube classes with me since the pandemic. And I will say that out of over 100, I had maybe half a dozen who did not appreciate this program and who did not want to follow it, who refused to participate. Most of my students participated, thought it was even kind of fun to do it like that. Type in the chat box and participate. So I have a feeling that it is a lot more successful than it isn't. But for it to be successful, I need you to type in a chat box. You can do it with a YouTube account or with a Gmail account. So let's talk about the outer circle. Those of you who typed in that the countries in the circle have English as an official second language, you were right. You were spot on if that's what you said, because it does. It does mean that. Can you please give me examples of countries like that? And I remember some of the reactions in the classroom when a few of these countries were mentioned. And I remember one student, I'm not going to name names, that said, "What does this country have anything? Does this country have anything to do with English at all?" So please tell me some countries that are in the outer circle of English. India is one. Pakistan is another. I'm going to refer to our book for the following because I want you to page 59 in your textbook. Let me see. 63. Was it 59 or was it something else? I look at the pages and I remember exactly what we were doing at the time. And I remember the classes and how everything was. I see your faces in the classroom participating in different ways. Perhaps it wasn't page 59, was it? But it was definitely this chapter. Social media, fake news. I remember going over all of this, reading critically. Oh, there it is. There we have it. The circles of English. So in the inner circle, we have the UK. The UK and the countries are part of the UK, right? USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland. And in the outer circle, as a second language, Bangladesh, Ghana, India, Kenya, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines. And some people are kind of surprised with some of these countries being on this list. But when you look at the history, for instance, the Philippines, at a point in time, the Philippines was a territory of the United States. So it isn't directly involved with the British Empire or the process of colonization, but indirectly, because the USA was colonized by the British Empire, and then the USA went and took this territory, had the Philippines as its territory. So the Philippines is in the outer circle, and they speak English as a second language there. Let's move on to the expanding circle. What is the expanding circle of English? Tell me. Type in the chat box. You have to type in the chat box, otherwise this does not work at all. And I have an enormous amount of appreciation for the students who participate this way. And in the future, some of you will be in situations where you will have to take classes online, where you will have to conduct meetings and also be part of meetings online. So this is important for you to know how to focus and learn from video content like this. So I am nervous. I worry about my students who don't want to accept this as a form of instruction, as a form of teaching. All right, the expanding circle of English. Those of you who put Norway in here, you are right. Norway, Brazil, Spain, the Netherlands, Sweden. These countries are in the expanding circle of English. How many of you remember what percentage of the population in Brazil speaks English? Please type in the chat box. And this is on delay. It is live, but it's on delay. So I am right here. When we go into a meeting on Skype or Teams, or if you call me on Messenger, anything like that. Not saying that you will, because we're not allowed to be on social media, but I'm just saying if anybody called me, they would see me. If they FaceTimed me, they would see me. So I'm suggesting Teams or Skype. I've been using Skype for over 20 years successfully. So the percentage of the population in Brazil who speaks English is very low. So even if you didn't remember the percentage exactly, the percentage is very low. And I talked about the social pyramid in South America, especially in Brazil, where poverty, the poverty line, is where a lot of the population is. And they don't have access to good education programs. I was privileged, and my entire family was privileged with education, so that is why we are the exception to the rule that we speak English like this. So Brazil is in the expanding circle. Norway is in the expanding circle, but the average person in Norway can communicate in English, and the worst English speaker in Norway will still be better than the best, than some of the best in other countries in the expanding circle. You have a fantastic educational program for English in schools. And this is why this culture is so fantastic. And I brag so much about Norway to the world. So this is going to be on your exam. There will be a listening portion, which will be a couple of interviews, very short ones. Like I said, you have 5 hours. Those of you who have documentation that you need extra time, you have between 4 and 5 hours to complete your exam. So you'll have plenty of time. I put in very short interviews for you to watch and take notes and answer the questions. And you don't even have to watch the whole thing in order to answer the questions. The next thing that I want to talk about is if you have your books with you, now would be a good time for you to pull it out. I told you to take your books home with you, so I'm not going to be too happy if you tell me that you didn't. The last time that we used the book in class, I had the privilege to teach you about this fantastic writer who happens to be my favorite. Do you remember who she is? Here she is. Do you remember her name? Type in the chat box if you remember her name. You can probably read it on the screen, but if you didn't and you remembered it yourself and you typed it in the chat box, good for you. What is special about Toni Morrison? Why is she a special American writer? Please type in the chat box. Those of you who were paying attention when I taught that, you will remember that she was the first African American writer to win a Nobel Prize in literature. And I understand that some people are still not 100% adroit at using the correct terminology. In 2023, you refer to a black person as black. If they're from the United States, you can call them African American. If they're not, if they're not, you can refer to them as black or as a person of color. Never, under any circumstance, should you use the N word to refer to someone. If you live in a community where people are racist and your friends are racist, your family is racist, and you are in your own circle at home and you want to say whatever you want to say, there is nothing that I can do about that. But if you are within earshot of a person of color, you probably don't want to use that word. You don't want to use the N word. It is offensive, and there is a very big chance that depending on where you are, that the consequences will not be very fantastic if you use them, if you use that word. So Toni Morrison was an African American writer. She passed away in 2019, and she is my favorite writer. I have read everything that she has written. You had the opportunity to read the text, the work you do, the person you are. Can somebody just write in the chat box what you remember from this text? A young lady that worked as a maid, that learned the value of work and work ethic from that experience. So, what is really important and the takeaway that I want you to have from this is that Toni Morrison may have written about her own experiences in this particular text that you read, but her experience in this world was as one of the most influential, one of the best writers in American literature, and the first African American woman to win a Nobel Prize in literature. This is what I want you to remember from the name, seeing the name Toni Morrison. We're going to move on to the next part of what we're going to do. We're going to have the next thing that we're going to do. You're going to read a text called Unprotected. This is something you will do on your own. Here is the text. I told you to take your books home with you. There are no excuses. I wrote it in the message that I put out on Canvas for you. If not, then you can use Unibook. Everyone should have access to Unibook. The text is called Unprotected. You will read the text and you will do the activities. The activity understand, which is a straight up true or false activity. I'm not too worried about number two, except for letter D. Number two, letter D. I'll put all of this on Canvas for you so you'll remember. Number three, A and B. And I'm not going to have you write a story because you have a lot of writing coming up that you're going to do for your exam. And right now, I want to invite you to do a few rounds of Quizlet Live. So please I want you to get your phones ready for that. So for you to do a Quizlet Live, you go to Quizlet Live. Some people just search up Quizlet Live and it comes straight up. And I'll give you a code. Remember, this is on delay, so whatever you're going to see is not what I'm going to put on the screen. I'm using 3 different computers and 2 phones to put this together for you. So I'll be giving you your code. I'm choosing I'm choosing to put an individual set on this so that each person can work on their own so you don't depend on anyone. You might have already started, but the game starts officially now. on the screen, but you probably have already started. We're going to play 2 rounds. All right, 3 rounds of it. All right, so most of you are probably already out of here, but whoever is watching this out of context, you will know that the class has ended per se, but I'm available on Teams and I'm also available on Skype if anybody needs anything. You have the links on Canvas for that. So after you finish watching this, and after you have finished, let us just say you take a break after finishing this, watching this, then go back and look at Canvas, do the activities for the day after you're finished. you can then work on everything you need to work for your exam that's coming soon.